Champions League special. Mourinho's treble-winning Inter and Mancini's Man City. Aguerroooooooooooooo!
And it's no nay never. No nay never, no more. 'Cause I'll stay a while over forever and more. And it's no nay never. No nay never, no more. 'Cause I'll stay a while over forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt to rank the greatest team ever. For some sides, it's a simple task. Like a Gareth Bale overhead kick in a Champions League final, you can recognise star quality when you see it. For others, it's a case of pinching yourself as you remember that Igor Bishkan, Vladimir Smicha and Jimmy Traore were all Champions League winners in 2005. My name's Graham Dunn, an Oxford United fan, the obvious starting place to judge Champions League greatness. And joining me and doing his utmost to remain impartial in this one as ever, it's Jamie Rooney.
Hey, Graham. I feel like I'm the Jonathan Greening of that intro, to be honest. I mean, he's also a Champions League winner in 1999. I'm in Cyprus this week, home of Anamorphis Famagucha, who I think it's pronounced that way. You know, with the pronunciations, we're pretty bad. I believe they got to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, a hot topic for us right now in the 08-09 season, and they were in the same group as Inter Milan, a team we're going to cover today. And they got dispatched by Real Madrid in the quarterfinals, a Cypriot team getting to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That's fairy tale stuff.
That is impressive. They seem to have escaped me. Maybe they are. Maybe we should take a look at them in a future podcast. You can be out there. You can be out there doing the live research as we speak. So joining us this week, we have Matt Leigh. Matt is a Spurs fan, so no dangers of any Champions League distractions anymore. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for that. Thank you for reminding me. I have been to a Champions League final. I flew out on the Friday. I had an exam at university on the Monday morning. Made it back, got a 2-1 in the exam. So, wish the scoreline would have been 2-1 to Spurs. But other than that, good memories of the Champions League. Only, until the end, as per usual with Spurs.
I watched that Champions League final from South Korea in the middle of the night, and I could only find a South Korean commentary on it, and clearly the only it was just everything was song. Everything was about that. That was which isn't a criticism because of course we've all been to. I remember World Cups where England are taking solace from the referee being or the linesman being Graham Poll or something like that. So yes, we're talking about two teams today, and obviously we've timed this to coincide with the Champions League final, which features Inter Milan and Manchester City. Now, we'll sort of get into those two teams, but actually pairing the two teams who paired together, which is Mourinho's treble-winning side, and obviously we can't include Man City's treble-winning side because we don't know whether they're going to do that yet. So there's a lot still riding on that.
I think they will, One can only hope. I like to. It's nice. Someone hasn't done it in England for a while. United like to harp on about it. Let's have someone else do it. Let's really cement them as a great side, and then we can do a podcast about them in a couple of years. It's perfect.
Definitely so. But the Man City side we've chosen, which is the first title-winning side. Bizarrely, those two stories do have quite a lot of similarities around them, actually. I think both have a kind of an arch nemesis that they're sort of battling against, which there are some sort of, seismic games against with Barcelona and Man United. Both, of course, have well-known players who made a shift from that side to the other. So obviously Samuel Eto'o and, of course, Owen Hargreaves. No, Carlos Tevez for City. And then, of course, both sides had Mario Balotelli. And I'm sure there's plenty of other similarities we can find along the way. But we're going to start up with Inter Milan. Matt, Inter is a team that's made, even though you were young at the time, probably too young to even kind of...
Trying to bring the age of this podcast down, I'm only 23.
Definitely needed. Our demographic is going to... Somebody at long last who understands what Insta is. We're loving it.
Oh, I even work in social media. I'm all over it.
But this Inter side, this is something that made a lasting impression on you, isn't it?
Well, yes, because they encapsulate everything we love about football. I mean, they come together with, a couple of signings in the summer, your Schneiders, your Motters, just to name a few, Eto'o as well, the only man to do a treble back-to-back with two different sides. I mean, and then they win it all, and then Mourinho disappears off into a Madrid paid-for car, says he can't ever go back to Milan because he'd never leave. And they don't win another title again up until Conte wins them one. It's a pretty amazing side with some fantastic moments throughout the season. So I thought, why not talk about, one of the greatest. I mean, we'll find out sides to ever do it.
They are a great side, Jamie. They come from, I suppose, the beginning of this side it's thrown in a difficult time for Italian football generally, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Matt's absolutely right. Inter had a bit of fortune in the early 2000s. I think this was their fifth Scudetto actually that they won on the trot, and they were gifted the first few because of the Calciopoli. I think that's how you pronounce it. Pronunciation again, I can't.
Sounds good to me.
I know, right? So you've got the scandal that kind of broke it around about 2005, just before Italy went on and won the World Cup in 2006. There's that theme that Italy need a scandal to go on and win the World Cup. That's happened before. Largely centered around Luciano Moggi, who was, he was tapping up referees and controlling things. I think there was a lot to it, and the case never really got settled. But the short-term decisions taken by the Italian Football Association was to demote Juventus to Serie B and deduct them enough points whereby they would have absolutely no chance of getting back into Serie A in the next season. So they were effectively in there for 2 seasons. They also deducted points from Milan and Fiorentina, and I think Lazio as well. And the first season that Inter won, the first Scudetto they won in this series of 5, leading up to the one in 9-10, what we're talking about, Milan were deducted 30 points and finished with 58 points. I think Inter won the league on around about 74, 76. So Milan were the best team, but obviously with the points deduction, they didn't win the league. But they did genuinely win 4 championships, one of them with Mancini, who then moved on to Man City, a team we'll talk about in a bit. And then Mourinho comes in for 2 seasons, and that's where we are. And I think Mourinho's focus from the very beginning was the Champions League.
And we have to be clear, when Mourinho joins, this is good Mourinho, isn't it?
I mean, this is Pete Mourinho. This is running down the pitch Mourinho. This is gesturing that he's got handcuffs on Mourinho. This is when he was at his best. I mean, yeah, a top-class manager in his prime, trying to prove that he can do it everywhere. It's the perfect storm, and also, with his European pedigree coming in. The scandal actually, as we'll see throughout the course of the season, provides him a perfect, I'd say catalyst is probably the right word, to bring his team together, because I think this is a theme we see throughout the course of the season is the togetherness of this side. I mean, a lot of Argentinians, which helps to create that band of brothers, but he creates an us versus them narrative of the referees are against us. They don't want Inter to win. And he talks about this when they play Barcelona as well later on in the season. It's all about making us versus them and creating a strong bond between his Inter players, which is classic Mourinho. He just finds those small margins to take his team over the top, which is to be admired.
Was there a Luke Shaw? Did you find a Luke Shaw to alienate as well?
Well, I mean, he had an argument with Balotelli. He had a couple of arguments with Balotelli. Threw him off a bus once. Didn't he? There was that good story that came out about him and Balotelli. I can't remember the game it was after or the game it was during. He got booked Balotelli gets booked in the first half, and he says, "Oh, I spent 14 minutes out of the 15 of the half telling Balotelli not to get his second yellow. 46th minute, second yellow, sent off. I mean, it's the stories that come out of this season are just fantastic.
Jamie, that first year under Mourinho at Inter, that goes okay. They win the league. It's quite a solid season.
Yeah, they win the league quite comfortably, actually. Juve come second. They're 10 points clear. They finish with 84 points, winning 25 of their 38 games. But Europe was a bit of a disappointment. They got out the group stage, as we mentioned, with Famagusta from Cyprus. Were in their group. And then they faced Manchester United in the round of 16. I mean, it finishes 2-0 to United over the two legs, but it was a pretty comfortable 2-0 for United as well. And I think it's for Mourinho to take stock about, if he's really going to crack the back of this Champions League again with Inter, which is quite incredible because I think we forget quite easily that Italian football, European-wise, was in a bit of a slump. England and Spain and Germany through Bayern Munich and a bit of Dortmund were dominating European football this time. And Italian football, albeit has always been of the highest level, was in a bit of a dip. So Inter Milan to be considered a serious contender, or any Italian team to be considered a serious contender in the Champions League in 2010 is quite a feat, especially when you've got Pep's Barcelona absolutely dominating. And I like to think a pretty decent Manchester United team as well.
Had to get that one in there, didn't you? And also, just interestingly, that Zlatan, just to bring it back to those couple of seasons, Zlatan was smashing in the goals for them during those seasons. But I think he scored 6 in 3 seasons in Europe in his last 3 years at Inter. So they just couldn't quite crack it.
It's the weird thing. And you mentioned about Samuel Eto'o and we've mentioned Zlatan. The change in cost over that summer is just extraordinary, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. It's you could argue, and I've had to think about this, as you should prepare for a podcast, about the best transfer windows or the most effective transfer windows someone's ever had, and this has got to be up there. I mean, getting 40 million plus Samuel Eto'o for Zlatan. They bring in Schneider for 15. They bring in Milito for 28. It just completely transforms the team. And it also brings in the sort of demographic of player Mourinho is looking for. These are not, Schneider aside, these are not young players. These are players 28, 29, 30 who are ready to win and want to win now. And also, they sort of, it represents the last chance for some of them in their prime to go on and win major trophies. So it's all about, again, developing the right demographic and the right culture, which is going to allow them throughout the course of the season to play probably beyond their means.
I completely agree with Matt. I think it's an amazing transfer window for Mourinho and Inter. I think the Milito deal, because they bring in Motto as well from Genoa, and I think they sent about 4 or 5 players. Aqua Fraser went there, and a bunch of other players, Luciano Bonotti. They sent a bunch of players to Genoa. So I think there's even question marks around that 28 million fee that they paid for Milito, because the business that they've done is just incredible. And they also bring in Lucio, that incredibly strong defensive player. It's brilliant business, and I could talk about Wesley Sneijder and his qualities all day long, but this is his sweet spot. I mean, he's a misfit at Madrid. He's had a few injuries at Madrid and he hasn't really settled in. And you think a player like Wesley Sneijder is made for Real Madrid. He should go to Real. He's a player that should always be at Real Madrid. But they bring in Cristiano Ronaldo from Manchester United. And Kaká, absolutely. So there's no place for Sneijder. He's an absolute misfit. And I think Mourinho, Avengers assembled for Inter Milan in terms of the quality players that he brings in.
Was it Sneijder that said he would have won the Ballon d'Or if he didn't like partying so much? Or am I making that up?
Bizarrely, in this particular season, he finishes 4th in the Ballon d'Or to 3 Barcelona players. 3 Barcelona players. And he drags, we're getting to the end of the season. He drags a Netherlands to the World Cup final as well. It's just incredible.
Samuel Eto'o coming off, but by any margin has to be described as a pretty successful spell at Barcelona.
Not bad, was it? Yeah, it's very interesting this as well, because he comes from Barcelona, where he is told, you're not going to be the central striker. Messi is going to play Messi is going to play in the middle, and he's having none of it. And he goes, no, I am the striker, I am the main man. And then he goes to Mourinho, and Mourinho goes, no, you will play wide. And he goes, okay, sure. And he ends up, in the Champions League semi-final, he ends up playing at fullback basically for an hour. So it's he said it. Mourinho was the only man who he would play that position for, and it's an amazing bit of business and also an amazing bit of management, but for Mourinho to get the best out of him when he wasn't the number 9 where he wanted to be.
It feels to me the prime story. I mean, the Scudetto is obviously a key part of any treble, but it is the Champions League that really is what sets this team out. And as I mentioned at the start, Barcelona emerged pretty early on, surprisingly early on, in that group of death, doesn't it? Because that was a pretty difficult group.
Yeah, and their Champions League campaign gets off to an inauspicious start with 3 draws. People are worried, that they're going to go out again in the group stage. They're going to waste this talent they have. They're drawing to Rubin Kazan. They're drawing to the other team in the group.
Dynamo Kiev.
That's the one. And obviously drawing to Barcelona. But they managed to get through. I believe there's a late goal in there that against Kiev or Kazan that they get this late. They scrape through the group in second place and set up a meeting with Mourinho's old side Chelsea, which I always revel in a Chelsea defeat. So 2-1 and 1-0 against Chelsea is a pretty good going. And afterwards, Mourinho comes out and says, "I will never be beaten by a team, a team that I have coached." Not so true these days. He's coached enough, but at the time it was it's must see. And then I struggle to think. I mean, the Champions League has thrown up so many amazing ties over the years, but I struggle to think of one that stands out as much as that Inter versus Barcelona semi-final. 3-1 victory at home and a 1-0 victory away, down to 10 men early, which was, I've rewatched it multiple times, a terrible decision to send off Thiago Motta. I mean, Mourinho, yes, probably utilised the fact that the scandal to say the rest were against him, but in that instance, I'm inclined to agree with him. That is, that's a booking at the worst. And then to have, I think it's 14, but I'm not sure of the true percentage of possession. And I watched Mourinho's coaching voice about that game, and he talks about creating a jail around Messi, and that's what they did, and they created a jail around that Barcelona side, and just refused to give up.
This Barcelona semi-final in the Champions League is the absolute key game of the whole season, and the 3-1 is incredible. Graham, a question for you. As a man who's got some professionalism in the airline industry, you may recall there was a kind of an incredible influencing factor that forced Barcelona to drive 14 hours from Barcelona to the San Siro for that second game. Are you able to shed any light on that?
Any articles from the time? Just pull them up.
Don't remind me. So we're talking ash cloud, aren't we? We're talking the Icelandic
We are.
ash cloud, which brought Europe to a standstill. So Barcelona had to travel.
Over 2 days on coach. 2 days on the coach to Italy, and they were minus Iniesta as well, which I think may factor into it as well. But yeah, 2 days on the coach to get all the way over to Inter, and they looked, not that I remember it too well. They did look leggy by the end of it, and a lot of people like to write that fatigue was a big factor in that first leg, but you still have to give in to their credit.
Definitely so. So they had. How would they go on when they played Barcelona in the group stages?
Well, I believe they drew to them in their first game 0-0. Mourinho set up shop, defend. It's a tale as old as time. Shame he couldn't do it more at Spurs, but hey ho. And then second leg, they go down 2-0. which leaves them needing a result from their final game against Rubin Kazan. So really, this treble may not have been. They're not the juggernaut that some other, the Barcelona treble winning side or the Bayern Munich treble winning side are. They have moments of real jeopardy where they look like it's not going to happen, and obviously that happens, in a lot of key seasons. But for this Inter side, I feel that they really cut it quite fine at times to get through, in places.
Probably, Jamie, nowhere more fine than in the Dynamo Kiev game.
Yeah, well, they're trailing to Kiev. I mean, Matt touched on it. It's a group of death. I mean, Rubin Kazan are no mugs at this particular point. Russian football is on and up. Russia is as a nation is on and up, and European teams through Zenit and Rubin Kazan and CSKA Moscow are competing in the latter stages. So this is a really tough group. So they get 2 late goals that turn it around, and that's what secures them the passage into the knockout stages. And again, it's our man Milito who just seems to kind of like turn up and score goals in the most crucial moments. So Milito in that season, I think he only had a couple of seasons with Inter. And I think when they signed him, he was 29, 30. He'd been in Serie A for some time with Genoa and done quite well and scored a lot of goals in Serie A. So he'd proven himself in that division, which is not always the easiest division to score. No top division's easy to score goals. If you score goals the way that Milito was scoring, you're clearly a class player. I think he ended up scoring 22 goals in Serie A, 6 in the Champions League, and a couple in the Coppa Italia as well, which is 30 goals. Ibra, the season before, was the top goal scorer for Inter, and he scored 29 goals. So they've got rid of a superstar in Ibrahimovic. They've replaced him with a journeyman quality goal scorer in Milito, and they haven't lost anything in terms of like goals. Even if you look at the league record, 70 goals, in the season with Ibra. In the league, 75 goals in the season where Ibra's not there and Milito and Neto have come in. So, and the goals against is pretty much the same as well, 32, 34. What Mourinho's done, he's just changed the dynamic of the team by bringing in Neto, and as Matt's pointed out, playing him out wide. And he really didn't want to play out wide for Barcelona with Pep, but for Mourinho. And it just seems that players will run through brick walls for Jose Mourinho. There's something about that guy that's so special. He really is a special one, that players are willing to do things that they wouldn't normally be willing to do. So the effect of Ibra has been replaced, but the style of the team is slightly different. And as Matt's already mentioned, you've got Samuel Eto'o, when Motta's sent off in the second leg against Barcelona in the Champions League semi-final, willing to sit in at right back. Incredible.
He does it manfully. But touching on Milito as well, it's also the willingness to work, which I think is so important for this Inter side, because they are not, they do not play champagne football a lot of the time. They score some wonderful goals, brilliant on the counter, but you look through any highlights reel, and I've looked through a few. They, a lot of these goals are coming from just direct long balls, and they're not punts upfield, but they are direct. There's Maicon breaking out using his legs. They are trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, and Milito helps them, with this, with clever runs in behind, holding up the ball well, and just generally working hard for the team. And he is, has one of the great seasons, scoring goals in important games and driving his team to the three separate titles.
We're talking about specific players, but the whole team was a bunch of superstars in their own right. You got Julio Cesar in goal, who's replaced Toldo over the last couple of seasons at Inter. You got Maicon, which Matt has referenced already, and you got Zanetti on the other side as a fullback. And Zanetti was so good, they actually retired his shirt number 4. Just to kind of sidetrack on that, retiring shirt numbers when you're still an active player or a retired player. I kind of get it with the Mark Vivian Foe thing. That makes total sense. There's something more serious there. But when it comes to regular players retiring shirt numbers, it's something they do in Italy. They don't do it in England that often. I don't know. Are you for retiring shirt numbers?
It's a good question. I'm a big basketball fan, and they love a jersey retirement. But I think I'm for it, but I think it's perhaps overdone. I don't, and also with a key number like 4, I just,
Yes.
retiring the number 4 shirt, it's quite an important shirt. If I'm a centre back coming in, and I'm choosing between Inter and AC, everything's the same, and the 4's available in one place. I'm going where the 4 is. So you've got to think about this in the long run.
I'm inclined to agree that I don't think you should be retiring single-digit shirts. I think anything outside
Agreed.
of over and above
Agreed.
11.
38, send it. I don't care. Do what you want. But 4, no, you got to keep it.
But if we move through the team as well, and we kind of look at some of the other players that we're featuring on a regular basis, and it's a big squad. Mourinho's got a big squad, and he's rotating players really sensibly as well. But the midfield stalwarts is generally Cambiasso. I mean, what a wonderful footballer Cambiasso is. Scorer of probably one of the best World Cup goals in history, actually, definitely in the top 10. And you got Stankovic in there as well, that kind of old timer who's represented 3 teams at a World Cup, I think, in Yugoslavia, Serbia, Montenegro, and Serbia. I mean, that's a solid midfield you've got there. And then I think an unsung hero in that kind of free that kind of plays with Schneider and Eto'o, you got Pandev, who I love Pandev. I thought Pandev was a fantastic player and a classic Mourinho player, because once again, here's a guy that will be willing to do anything he's asked to do by somebody like Jose Mourinho. And he's just got that incredible determination and will to win and desperation to win. I think Goran Pandev is one of the most underrated players I think we've seen in a long time. So you've got this incredible set 11 that Mourinho's using, but you've got some incredible players backing up, and we kind of touched on as well. Balotelli, we shouldn't forget the talent of Balotelli. I mean, he has become a bit of a sideshow, unfortunately, because of some incredibly stupid things that he's done. But I think that is the character of him. But I mean, Balotelli was a fantastic talent, an incredible goal scorer, incredible technical player, and somebody that Mourinho could rely on, because I think he only played in 17 games in this particular treble winning season, but he still chipped in with 10 goals, which is a great return.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before we get to the final, let's talk about the league. So were Juventus back in the mix by this stage? Had they got themselves back up to speed, or who are they battling?
Juventus, I think, are back in Serie A at this point, but they're not in the mix at all. They're playing off really against Roma. Milan are in there, AC Milan are in there as well, but it's really a 2-horse race this particular season between Inter and Roma. I mean, Roma get off to an horrendous start. They lose their first couple of games against Genoa and Juventus, and they get rid of Spalletti, a manager I really like, actually. I've always liked. Doing quite well at the moment as well.
Not bad,
yeah, I know, right? He's doing pretty decent. But they get rid of Spalletti over the international kind of break, late August into September. They start again mid-September. Between that period, they've brought in one of our favourite managers of all time, Claudio Ranieri. And this is Claudio Ranieri before Leicester City.
Old school.
But it is Claudio Ranieri post Chelsea. So he gets off to a bit of an indifferent start with Roma. I think he loses 3 of his first 7 games. And Roma are kind of languishing around 14th, 15th after about 10 games. But then they go on this incredible run, this brilliant 23-game unbeaten run, to the point of when they play Inter towards the end of the season, they actually go top. So they're top of the Serie A with 4 games to go. So Inter haven't got the luxury of putting all their eggs in the basket of the Champions League. They still got some work to do in the Serie A Championship with Roma, who are going strong.
So it goes down to a 4-game shootout, essentially, and Inter come out on top.
It goes down to the final game. So the final game of the season, the league title was still undecided.
They beat Siena with a Milito's goal, in the second half. And this is going to be a theme of the treble, a Milito goal to win you a trophy. But it's also, I think, this, maybe a knock against them later. It's not the greatest points tally you'll ever see, 82 points to win the title, to play Roma's 80. it's not one of those domestic seasons which, you know, makes you take a step back and go, whoa. You know, it's a good season, and they do what they need to do, as Mourinho, I'm sure, will tell you. But it's not this. They're not an all-conquering domestic side, and they do have quite a few hiccups.
It's quite Mourinho, isn't it? It's quite classic Mourinho to do what is needed to get over the line.
Yeah. It's just winning games, however you need. If Mourinho needs to take the flak for, you know, and he gets himself banned for 3 games for doing a handcuff gesture midway through because he's so upset at what the refs are doing to his poor Inter side. But it's all, you know, I think this is all calculated. It's all to take off the pressure from his players and to let them, you know, if the media's talking about Jose, they're not talking about the fact that you've gone out and lost, or the fact that you've not played particularly well. It's Jose at its finest, and perhaps it's, you know, a time when you could control the media narrative, where there was, you know, it's pre the rise of a lot of social media, pre the rise of podcasts such as this, where you know, it's much more difficult to control the narrative now as it was then. So, you know, Mourinho is a master of this, and perhaps it's why he's tailed off a little bit, is his inability to control the narrative. So, you know, it's just something interesting to think about.
That's a really good point, actually. He is an absolute genius, and, you know, I don't think he's going to go down as the greatest football coach of all time, but he definitely is in there with, you know, if you were to compile a list of your top 50, 25, which is incredible when you think of how many coaches there's been. I think Mourinho is going to be up there. He's won the Champions League with Porto. He's won the Champions League with Inter Milan. He's won championships in 4 different countries. Inter Milan are the biggest of the bunch, and Porto's big and Chelsea's big. But in terms of the context of football, you know, Chelsea and Porto they've become kind of heavyweights over time. But, you know, these are not teams that you would generally see winning the Champions League. So I think Mourinho's place in history is fairly secure. I think Matt's absolutely right. I think his relevancy has tailed off towards the tail end of his career. Maybe he's become complacent, maybe become lazy. Maybe, because he can't control the narrative, as Matt mentioned, so he becomes less irrelevant. But as we're recording this, he could be winning the trophy right now. Yeah.
What about the cup? So have they won it by this stage, or is that still live?
The cup in Italy is a little different to what we're used to in the FA Cup. Italian teams from the top flight generally come in around, nowadays they come in around when there's 32 teams left. So you're only playing a couple of games before you get to the final. They beat Livorno 1-0 in the round of 16. They're straight into a quarter-final where they beat Juventus. They then play a 2-legged semi-final with Fiorentina. They win both of those 1-0. And then they go to the final early May, the 5th of May. So this is the first of the 3 that they secure. And they beat Roma. And any prizes for guessing who scores the only goal in the game?
Don't know. Might be some Argentinian fella.
1-0, Milito, Roma, with the 1-0 against Siena to secure the Scudetto. This guy is having an absolute incredible May right now. And it's about to get better.
It is about to get better.
I think that's the incredible thing, actually. When you think about, I mean, one of the reasons the treble is so difficult to achieve is that you can't have a week off. I mean, those games that actually count, you have to win. What makes Inter's achievement all the more remarkable is that, to some extent, beating Barca in the semi-final is, to then steel yourself to go again, just unbelievable, isn't it?
It is, and it was an amazing final as well. I mean, you've got 2 teams going for trebles. You've got a fantastic Bayern side, perhaps not at their absolute peak, but still dominating Bundesliga, still, going for the treble. And, Milito doesn't get 1 in this game, he gets 2. So, you can't say he's not improving. And they are absolutely fantastic finishes both. So, I mean, these are proper goals to grace any final. And and I like the point that you made about them not peaking in the semi-finals, because it would have been easy to do. It would have been the easy thing. But I don't think any Mourinho-led side would ever forget about the final.
I think the semi-final was the final. I think the final was a tough game against a very good Bayern Munich team. But I think it's fairly routine. And I think Mourinho was probably confident going into this game that he had the makings of this team. I mean, you saw it in the semi-final, the celebration from Mourinho.
Giving it to the Barca fans.
I think not only was he kind of giving it to the Barcelona fans, which he certainly was, I think he felt confident that I had to get through this one to win the Champions League again. And I've got through this one, and I'm going to win the Champions League again. And he was absolutely correct.
The aftermath of, it's an amazing achievement. And Jamie, I think you've pointed this out. There's some extraordinary footage, isn't there, after the game with a hard man at the back, Materazzi.
Yeah, I mean, it's tears. He's in tears. Marco Materazzi, famous for many things. One of them, you may not realise, being voted in the history of football 45 out of the top 50 hardest footballers of all time. It was done in the mid-2000s, 2006, 2007. I think it was an English Times thing. And they polled their 50 players, and Marco Materazzi was in there. But yeah, in floods of tears. And I think it just kind of compounds how the team felt about Jose Mourinho, because Mourinho had already agreed to go to Madrid. It hadn't been signed, but everyone knew it was going to happen. This was the last time. I think Mourinho didn't even go back to
He refused.
Milan.
He refused.
Yeah.
He said if he went back to Milan, he never would have left. So he said he couldn't go back. He couldn't take part in the celebrations. He had a hug with the chairman, and then was bundled into a car, never to be seen in Milan again. It adds to the sort of the beauty and myth of the season that the coach doesn't even come back because it's so final. It just adds to the story, because this was not a, they go out, they dominate the season and they win. This was sort of a fairy tale type story, and it ends, with the bloke running off at the end.
Just extraordinary. But Jamie, why you think I'd be surprised that Marco Materazzi, a player who was sent off 3 times in 27 games for Everton, might be among the hardest men of... It is...
Sounds like Casemiro's suspension record, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not far off, actually, yeah.
It was probably always inevitable that Mourinho would go to Madrid if given that opportunity. I mean, he taught that up before, and he's a man who certainly feels he can do those jobs. Do you think it was repeatable? Had he rightly called time on it?
I think it was the correct decision. There's nothing more you can win with a side. It's the first ever Italian side to do the treble. It's an amazing achievement. There's only down from there. I don't think it's repeatable with Inter, as was shown by the fact they didn't win. They didn't win it. They didn't win anything next season. And I know that's a different season with a different manager and everything like that. But I think you always have to leave them. If you're going to win a treble and walk out, it's the Mourinho way. And I think it's perfect, and I wouldn't want it any other way. It's just a brilliant story of it coming, happening, gone, done.
It's certainly the ultimate mic drop from him, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Jamie, I think we come to it's time to rank this team. As ever, we have 5 categories of greatness. We won't need any ones at the bottom this time. I think I would imagine it's between all-time greats up at the top, true greats, which is our second highest, then touch of greatness. And then we've got a couple more beyond that, but I'd be amazed if they came into the frame. Jamie, where are you landing on this?
Yeah, normally I'm forever the optimist with these things, and I kind of aim high. Do you know what? As much as I really love this story and I really love this team, I generally think this is a touch of greatness. I don't think they're all-time greats. I don't know whether you'd stack them in the history of Inter. I don't know how Inter would think about that when you think of the teams of the 1960s, where Inter were dominating Europe for, a period of time. I think it's fun to kick off with a touch of greatness and see where you two guys take it, actually, and see whether I could be changed into something else.
So to clarify, that's the second top or the third top?
Third, yeah, the third.
Okay.
I know. Controversial. I'm playing the role of Graham today.
Oh God, that's just so wrong.
Go on, Matt.
So my options are all-time great. I'm not even considering what Jamie's just said. So all-time great. Or now, context is everything here. It was a poor Serie A. it was not a Serie A at its height, at its zenith. It was not a Serie A with multiple teams contending with top players coming to the league. So that is important. So that gives them 2 trophies. But the Champions League launches you into one of the greatest teams of all time. I so want to say they're in that top rung. I so want to. But I just think if you're comparing them to other sides who I would consider in that top bracket, well, you'd think on paper they don't stack up, but the Mourinho factor is an interesting one. But I'm gonna stick with my guns and say true greats. They're a true great. There you go.
I'm drawn to a number of things with this story. I particularly like that it's just one perfect year, that everything sort of comes together, and like Kaiser Soze, in a moment he's gone before you know it. I think you're both right to pick out that it isn't a vintage league. It's not potentially even a vintage Inter side when you view it. So, touch of greatness. Now, I have to bring
that's harsh. That's harsh.
On a previous podcast, admittedly, partly down to administrative error, which meant that Scott didn't understand what category we were. We had Hereford's 1973 team as touch of greatness, and you're suggesting you're seriously suggesting Jose Mourinho's treble-winning Inter side is also touch of greatness. And I love the ambition. I love keeping the debate going. I'm not dissing Hereford, but I think it's a brave effort, Jamie, but I have to side with Matt on this. Mourinho's treble-winning Inter, true greats. So we come to the second part of our Champions League final two-parter, and it's Manchester City. And we haven't picked the best Manchester City team ever. Well, we didn't pick the best Inter Milan side ever either, I guess. But this is a kind of a remarkable Man City side. So this is the first time that they win the Premiership in 40 plus years. It symbolises if the Inter treble didn't herald a legacy, then this Premiership win definitely did. It's the complete opposite of that. And at the helm of it, ironically, of course, is Mourinho's predecessor, Roberto Mancini. And I think in the same way, Inter's win was sort of shaped in the mould of Mourinho. I think the way Man City did, the flair, and not even necessarily in their football, but the emotion in the way they did it, sort of reflects Mancini as well, and the style and bits and pieces. I kind of feel, with the ultimate drama in the end, but even some of the results along the way, I think there's a similarity of them playing like Mancini. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tale of one city. And I think you're right, actually, to draw comparisons between Mourinho and Mancini. I think even though Mourinho doesn't have any playing career, there isn't, as a fan, we don't have that point of reference because we never saw him. But we saw Mancini play. Some of us did. Matt, you probably need YouTube. I completely accept that. Yeah, young enough. But if you allow me, and Graham, hopefully you can fill in the gaps. I do remember Mancini playing in the 90s for Sampdoria, and had a short spell at Leicester as well, actually, towards the end of his career. But he was an exciting attacking player. He played generally in wide positions, and wonderful technical balance, wonderful skills, incredible creativity, an incredible mind to unlock defenses. He could just do the sublime. He really was an absolute delicious player to watch. And you're right, Graham, as a coach, he wasn't that individual. He was very defensive minded, and he continues to be right now. Even though this particular Man City team that you're talking about, and you're probably right, Graham, it is, I don't even know why we're talking about him, to be honest. I think that great.
It's such a fun half an hour, 45 minutes for us.
I know. they do win a lot of games by a lot of goals, and they score a lot of goals. And I think there's one particular reason about that we can come to. But yeah, Mancini was very defensive minded. I think he's been quoted as saying, he's quite happy to win a game 1-0, and he has no issues with that. So he's very contrasting in terms of the Mancini we know as a player to the coach. And I think he's very similar to Mourinho. And I think he's probably even more park the bus than Mourinho, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Mancini has, where he brings a flair is in his brilliant ability to wear a scarf, which proved to be
light blue is definitely his colour.
Highly impressive. But I think what is so great about that season, and some people from a different half of the city maybe don't like it so much, but it's all about narrative. It's the drama of it, and that is what and I think Mancini was a great man to have at the helm of that, because it just kind of it sort of fits. It almost, to some extent, in fact, it fits the Italian flair, I think. So he's been in post. Is this his second season?
He's been there since he left Milan in 708. So yeah, this will be his third season, and he's just won the FA Cup, which is City's first trophy for 1,000,000 years.
Yeah, remind them. Don't worry, you tell them.
As I said at the beginning, there is definitely an element to which this rivalry between the two, and in that they should be in the same city. It's a new thing. They are the new kids on the block, I guess. Man United held sway for some time. That cup semi-final, and in fact going on to win the final. I think Yaya Toure gets the winning goal in the final. That's probably what kickstarts the belief in that team, I guess.
Yes and no, Graham. I think what kickstarts the belief is probably when the Abu Dhabi group with Sheikh Mansouri come in and basically give unlimited riches. I mean, once you've got a pot that never dries, suddenly things are changing. Am I coming across like a bitter blue right now?
Yeah.
In fairness, you're right, Graham. I think obviously having the backing, the financial backing does help. And Mancini's gone there at the right time. He's taken over from Mark Hughes, and that financial backing where they can bring big players in. And 2011, the FA Cup semi-final is the real kind of turning point, I think, for Manchester City. They've played their neighbours, Manchester United, in the FA Cup semi-final, and generally in that scenario, as a City fan, you probably think we probably won't beat them because they just win all the time. As a United fan, you're probably thinking we're just going to bat them away because we always beat them. And that doesn't happen. I think Berbatov has a couple of really good chances early on. He should take one. They go on, Yaya Toure scores after an uncharacteristic mistake from Michael Carrick, who's generally absolute perfection personified. Paul Scholes makes a Paul Scholes tackle on Zabaleta, I think it's, head high, and gets a red card. And the tide has turned. Manchester has a new number one football team in the making. And I think you're right, the die has been cast, and this is the start of something very special for Manchester City.
This feels a bit like therapy, doesn't it? Get it out. Just tell us, tell us how you really feel. It's interesting to point to one moment that United, getting over the line, and 100% I agree. What maybe Graham was going to talk about is backing it up in the summer with some brilliant bits of transfer business, bringing in Aguero, some terrible bits of transfer business as well. I mean, they sign loads of players, they get rid of, that's what the money lets you do. It allows you to make mistakes. Not every single one needs to be a success, but bringing in Aguero that summer is completely transformative. Quite like Milito that we talked about before. It's backing up success with shrewd business, or a lot of business, and one of it will come off.
So they were a bit all over the place, but what they had successfully done, I think you were absolutely right to mention Joe Hart, who becomes maligned, but is an absolutely central player to this Manchester City side.
Yep.
And if you're looking at sort of characters in that team, Joe Hart, company. I think Zabaleta is a massively underrated footballer. Toure and Silva. You've got it through that team. You have some people who are absolutely central to this Man City team. This season begins, and actually, Man City start the season on fire. I think they win 12 of their first 14 games, and they win those games in style. So there are some big wins in there.
Quite important one in there. Should we talk about that one?
Is it the 5-1 at White Hart Lane?
I remember that game well. They did that to us for a couple of seasons running, actually, just 5-0s, 5-1s, really depressing evenings. But I'd rather talk about 6. I'd rather talk about 6-1 away at United. So Jamie, why don't you run us through that game?
Yeah, it's a massive moment, and it's a huge achievement for any team to come and score 6. Although Tottenham have done this in recent.
Oh, we know how to do it well. We're experts.
Absolutely, but yeah, I mean, City 6-1 is a brilliant result for City, and I don't think the scoreline flatters them too much, but it does a bit because it's fairly equal. Balotelli scores early on in around about the 20th minute, and then that's the famous moment where he's got the T-shirt.
Yes.
Wales me. So he's kind of looking unimpressed by himself, scoring, at the Stretford end. He doesn't even take his shirt off to show his T-shirt. Yeah,
it's clever.
Exactly right.
He is
clever.
Maturity.
It is maturity, but just the week before he was setting off fireworks in his own apartment.
Yeah, but not on the pitch. So it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, Balotelli aside, though, that game contains. I think it was one of the first times I remember watching a pass and just sort of my jaw hitting the floor. The David Silva through ball for the final goal. I mean, yes, it is like it's kicking someone while they're down, but it was just that chest control, and the first time hit was a thing of beauty and just really showed the individual quality that City have, and just catapulted their season, really.
It did, and I think we shouldn't ignore the fact that Johnny Evans has been sent off early on in the second half. And you're 1-0 down, so you've lost a player. You're not going to sit back at Old Trafford. You're going to try to go for it. So you're going to create opportunities for your opposition, and that's exactly what happened. Balotelli gets the second, Aguero gets the third, Fletcher pulls one back, and then we've got 3 goals in the last, I think, 26 seconds of the game, which kind of double the scoreline.
I mean, the extraordinary bit is, over the course of those first 14 games, 12 wins, 2 draws, City scored 48 goals over those 14. It's not even, 6, that's the most goals they get in one game, but they're pretty much regularly getting 3 or 4. They are just starting to click, and I think that is where you are starting to see. Aguero is obviously a massive helper. You've got Dzeko there, you've got Balotelli, you've got goals coming from all over the pitch.
Nasri, Yaya Toure. They're all chipping in. I hate to say his name, but Adam Johnson as well actually had a good season for City. Yeah. I was surprised with how many appearances he had, but he did have a good season. And that's all we're going to say on him. That's all we need to mention about Adam Johnson. But yeah, it was a collective effort. Yes, Aguero had a top season, but there were goals. I think Yaya had 10 from midfield, so not his best goal scoring season, but he was seen as a defensive midfielder coming from Barcelona. Yeah, so
absolutely,
for him to pitch in with 9 or 10 goals, I think it was 9 or 10. I'm not sure. It is a good contribution from your midfield. It's you need those to get you over the line.
One player who didn't oddly have a particularly strong season, but who was probably the lightning rod of the City United rivalry then as well was Carlos Tevez, wasn't it?
City scored more own goals that season 5 than Carlos Tevez scored goals with 4. Welcome to Manchester. Yeah, it didn't work out for him the same way it didn't work out for Owen Hargreaves, and I don't blame either of them for going. I think it was perfectly the right reasons. Why wouldn't you? Hargreaves had been sidelined by Ferguson at this point because of his tendonitis in his knees, and he was looking for a club. Tevez, you got an opportunity to go to a team that's on the up, and they were on the up. And as we know now from what history has told us over the last 10 years, United were on the down. They'd only win one more championship after this season in the next 12 years. So I think Carlos Tevez was ahead of the curve. He could see the future, and it didn't work out for him. It's a shame because he's a fantastic player. But his reasons to go to Manchester City at that moment were absolutely spot on, because this was the team to go to.
That Man City side, I mean, they sort of stay on it for most of the year, in fact. But they do have a bit of a stumble, sort of February, March time. I think they go.
It's March, yeah. They start off the month beating Bolton, but then they lose to Swansea. They beat Chelsea, draw to Stoke, draw to Sunderland. So Sunderland, they don't get any points off Sunderland in that season. They lose 1-0 to them earlier on, and which was an amazing game to watch. Actually, I remember seeing the goal in the 93rd minute. But and then they lose to Arsenal at the start of April. So they have a big old dip at the crunch time in the season. This all whilst being out of the Champions League, Carabao or Capital One Cup or whatever it was League Cup as it was known then. Yeah. From the City we know today, who just go on winning streak after winning streak, this is them showing their inexperience and naivety and having a big stumbling block.
How are United faring at this stage, Jamie?
They'd put a pretty commanding run together. I think they were 12 or 13 over this period where City were dropping points. And I think we should point out, not to Phil Craig, who's been on this podcast a couple of times, and I think may come back for another one at some point. Sunderland fan who did our Sunderland 50th anniversary. Sunderland, as Matt's already mentioned, beat them 1-0, 93rd minute. I think it was a G goal.
It was.
And also Sunderland were 3-1 up at City, and City scored 2 late ones. There's a theme here, isn't there? To bring it back to 3-3. Yeah, so Sunderland have taken 4 points from City. They're the only team to not lose to them. City, I mean, it's incredible. United are having a run, and to get to the point, Graham, I think around about March time, United were 8 points clear with the 6 games remaining. And I have to say, at the time, I felt pretty confident. There were a couple of games coming up where you'd kind of feel edgy as a fan, but you're thinking 8 games, 8 points clear with 18 points to play for. You're pretty much thinking this is another championship in the bag.
So City go on and win the next 3 games to tighten things at the top, and you kind of know the pivotal game is the game against United again, isn't it?
It is, but there's a few things that happened before that. I mean, City lose to Arsenal, where United go 8 points clear, and then Mancini, a bit like what we talked about Mourinho earlier, he deflects everything away from his players and says that the title's over, can't blame the players. But then he changes his mind every single game, as we do with fans as well. But what happens is the next games, they beat West Brom 4-0, and then they go to Norwich and they win 6-1. Now, that's 2 big wins, but that's a +9 goal difference. And that's very significant in terms of what happens at the end. Those 2 victories and those goals, it's almost like Mancini knows that if we're going to have any chance to win this league, it's going to be on goal difference. He's already kind of foreseen it, something that you would expect to Ferguson or Mourinho, as we talked about previously. But those goals against Norwich and West Brom have a massive significance in this title race.
Winning those games not only bring the confidence back, but obviously help with the point situation. How far behind United are they going into that derby game?
3 points. So United have lost to Wigan away. I remember that game, and I remember thinking the doubts creeping in. It's a game they should have put away. They didn't. And then in between that, United have played Everton at Old Trafford. They're 4-2 up with, I think, 14, 15 minutes on the clock, and Everton get 2 late ones to draw 4-4. So those 5 points dropped means that City are now 3 points behind United going into the final game, and they've just established a much stronger goal difference.
Absolutely, and everything rests on that derby game. Man City come out on top of that. That's Vincent Kompany, is it?
Oh, bullet header from a corner, isn't it? It's not his best title-winning goal, but I mean, it was. I remember that game. This is starting to come into the time period where I'm watching week in, week out, and these are my formative years. So I don't quite remember United just a bit on the down. City, the team of my. Not just of my youth, but City, the team I remember dominating. But that Kompany header, I remember seeing it and just thinking, this could this could be tight. I mean, it just was a tight game. It was what you expect from for sort of end of season, going down to the wire. No reds, but a lot of needle. From that game on, I think City were, just because of the goal difference, you thought City were going to do it.
Jamie, were you resigned at that point?
I mean, you always have hope, but yeah, I mean, you've just seen your team win one game in 4, lose 2, draw 1 in a title running. So the momentum has shifted.
But to some extent, because we're sort of speeding through, partly because I don't think there's another game, another story like this, which is so. That story then plays out all over again on the final day of the season, and we get used to it now when you're watching the match of the day, and they go from Villa Park after 10 minutes, and then they go off somewhere else, and they try and get that. There's great drama, but I mean, there's never been this amount of drama. So the scene is set fantastically. So obviously, Man City are at home to QPR. Again, they should be winning. QPR, they do need to win it themselves, depending on the result of Bolton-Stoke, I think it is. QPR could still get relegated, and it's not a gimme, but I think you would take to win your first title for 44 years, home to QPR. You would take. Our friends at Sunderland are back in the frame for Man United, and they're over at that's where Man United play. Yeah, Stadium in Light, of course. Yes, I wanted to say Roker Park. That's my age. They're over at Stadium in Light. Is it Man United that score first in that game over those 2 games?
Yeah, United score early.
And City are edgy and nervous, but when Zabaleta scores, I think after about half an hour or so, that feels as though that's that. You couldn't really see that going wrong. And so you go in at half-time, Man City 1 up, and Man United 1 up, but it's looking as though it's not going to make a difference. A few minutes into the second half, Jolien Lescott misjudges that header, and Cisse scores, gets an equaliser for QPR. But even at this point, I mean, City need to win. Enter the drama. Enter Joey Barton.
Agent Joey. They sent him to QPR just to do this for them. Agent Barton. No, yeah, he has a brain fade and picks a fight. Basically, Tevez he picks the fight with first. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, it's Tevez.
And then picks and who comes in? Who steps in after?
Well,
he then has a crack at Aguero, I think.
Yeah. Yes, he does. Yeah. I think it's through half the team, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe they made a reference about his faux French accent.
That is brilliant.
I was reading about that he basically said once he got the red, he just decided the best thing he could do was to try and get a Man City player sent off.
Yeah.
It's genius if you think about it, but unfortunately, it didn't pay off. At this point, City, it's still 1-1. It's all in the balance, and then QPR do the unthinkable and score next. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, this is why it's been dull for the last couple of seasons of the Premier League, apart from last season where it did go down to the final day. But I mean, this late drama. It was just amazing. How was your pulse, Jamie?
Well, I mean, at 1-1, you're feeling nervous, but you're in control. And then I think it's Jamie Mackie scores against the 10 men. And then suddenly you've been given a cup of optimism where you wasn't expecting to have any going into the day. And I think I felt a bit like what the United players felt like, especially as we fast forward to the 90th minute. I mean, as the whistle goes at the Stadium of Light, and United have won, they're kind of, searching around. And as they're doing that, Dzeko has made it 2-2. And that's in the 90th plus 3 or 90 plus 2 minute. Yeah.
I'll just take you back a minute. Partly, I mean, obviously no one was, as an Oxford fan, nobody was more surprised to see Jamie Mackie score than me. Great player there he was. But Martin Tyler's commentary is famous, of course, and famous for Unbelievable and poorly imitated pronunciation of Aguero. But I was just listening back to it. You also have the commentary, the line he says just before Dzeko goes in, and he says, if they win it from here, I don't think it'll ever be topped. And that's the kind of thing that commentators say all the time in there'll be a miracle if they score 3 goals from here, and they don't. Only on this occasion, unbelievably, they do. They bundle in the goal from the corner. Dzeko gets it in. QPR by now are safe because Stoke...
Bolton are down, I think.
Bolton are down.
And they've become a rugby team.
Yeah.
They've kicked for touch.
It was just a siege on the QPR end. I think I can't remember if I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't the QPR goalie make a couple of decent saves? You start to think it's not your day. It's looking pretty bleak for City. I mean, I remember the Sky Sports cameras panning to Wayne Rooney, who's looking around with that vacant look that he often has behind his eyes. It's just cometh the hour, cometh the only Italian Premier League winner, the man with 1 Premier League assist. And if you're going to do, like we said with Inter Milan, if you're going to have one, you might as well make it a good one. Although the keeper should save it. I think this gets I don't think people talk about it enough. Keeper should save it.
It is it's just an extraordinary moment. Balotelli literally straight back up the other end. I mean, the volume at that stage, the excitement, everything, and it is literally their last moment. But there's no other player very few players you would want that ball to fall to than Aguero. And the story is extraordinary to win the title by the barest of margins in the most dramatic fashion ever. And it did, it had the feel that, to break the stranglehold that the United had held over them and the psychological impact of it, it was going to take something almost, not quite otherworldly, but something instinctive to be able to do.
Regardless of its goal difference, City deserve this championship. They are the best team. They've finished on 89 points, as have United, which is a huge amount of points back then. Now, it's normal. I mean, now teams are finishing on, 89, 90 odd points. It's an incredible amount you need to win the Premier League. But I go back to Aguero, and we know that Aguero was the difference, and we've seen him at City. And so the season before, when City finished, I think, in 4th place and just got into the Champions League, they had scored, in their 38 league games, they had scored 60 goals. In this season where they've won their first championship since 1968, the year United won the European Cup, by the way, they've scored 93 goals. That's a 33 goal difference. That's massive. That's 33 goals extra that they've scored, and that's the difference. Aguero has scored 23 goals and he's assisted on 10 goals. That's 33 goals. I mean, Sergio Kun, as he was known back then, Aguero, was the difference. He was the Cantona signing, and City won the championship because of that signing.
We should get on with ranking this team, I think.
I hate to see where Jamie puts this team after putting Inter Milan a touch of greatness.
Matt, do you want to go first on this?
I think we'd have to go. I think touch. They have a touch of greatness. Now, you can never underestimate the importance of a first title. We've talked about it a lot. And the narrative of them beating their rivals is amazing. And they did play some brilliant football. And I'm now talking myself into saying this amazing side. However, they didn't make it. I don't even believe they made it out of their group in the Champions League. They didn't win the FA Cup. They didn't win the League Cup. And United sort of had it in their hands and dropped the ball. For all of City's greatness, and you need that luck to win a title, don't get me wrong. But a touch of greatness seems right, because what they do is they provide the foundation to say this is the club to be at for the years to come. But that team itself, when compared to other City sides, when compared to other achievements over the last 10, 11 years, I don't think we can get distracted by the final day and its touch of greatness, and that's what I'm going with.
Love that, Matt. I'm going to be distracted by the final day. I say it's true great. So I think the drama, the narrative around it is just so great. It is the greatest story. It is the greatest story. I was there watching on the TV, obviously, watching Michael Thomas get the winner, Arsenal, Liverpool. It's up for grabs now. At the moment, I thought a title decider between the two sides would never be beaten. The narrative around it and that Aguero should get it. True greats for me. I can't believe I'm letting Jamie decide.
Wow, I didn't realize I had that authority. That makes it really interesting. Graham, you're absolutely right. I think it is dramatic. The drama, I mean, it's what Sky Sports dream of. And we still hear Martin Tyler's Aguero right now. It still plays. You'll never see anything like this again. But we have seen stuff like this again, probably not to that drama. You know, we saw it last season. The end of last season was City and Liverpool. You know, City coming from behind to beat Villa 3 goals in the last 20 minutes. We've seen it in Germany countless times with Dortmund and Bayern. We saw it just last weekend with Dortmund and Bayern. In 2019, we saw it with Dortmund and Bayern on the final day as well. And you've already alluded to Arsenal Liverpool, which has happened. But I think there has been a better one. If I go back to 2001, I will get to my ranking in a minute. But I think there is a better end of season. And it happened in the Bundesliga in 2001. And it was between Bayern Munich, always Bayern Munich, and Schalke. Now, Schalke hadn't won a Bundesliga in their history. And they go into the final day knowing that if they win and Bayern don't win, then Schalke will win the championship. Schalke get off to a horrendous start. They're a couple of goals down. They turn it around and they win 5-3. Whilst they're turning this around in Hamburg, where Bayern are playing, where Bayern have to get at least a point, it's 0-0 going into added time. Hamburg score. Schalke are the champions of the Bundesliga, providing the next 3-4 minutes play out and Bayern don't score. And what happens, and you can watch this on YouTube, it's fascinating. Schalke starts celebrating. The players are rolling over on the pitch. They're cuddling each other. Fans are running on the pitch. The camera pans to the screen where they're showing now the Bayern Munich Hamburg game, which is 1-0 and it's gone into added time. And it was Ufalusi, the defender for Hamburg. He's going for a 50-50 on the edge of his own box and he taps the ball back to his goalkeeper, a Schalke goalkeeper on loan, who picks the ball up. The referee awards an indirect free kick in the area. We're now into added time. There's chaos going on with the wall. Patrick Anderson smashes the ball into the net. The final whistle goes. Bayern have drawn 1-1. They win the Bundesliga with the final kick of the season, whilst the Schalke players and fans are celebrating the Bundesliga championship. So I think Aguero's goal is by far and away one of the most dramatic things we've seen, but not the most dramatic. I think there are contenders. As for this team, where do I rank them? We know the legacy now. We've seen it with Pep's team. They did defend their title. United won the following season. Pellegrini picks up a title. He's on his way. And we don't see the brilliance of Man City until Pep really turns up. I think we're seeing a classic tale of a team on the edge of greatness right now in this Man City team.
All of that just to get to edge of greatness.
Edge of greatness.
Anything, you know, that sounded like a uni dissertation to come up with other things that could push this City side down.
I'm a desperate man, Matt. What can I say?
Oh, I know the feeling.
I feel like Graham should be the arbiter, as always, on this, and I don't think I should be given the authority to make such decisions.
No, and I'm not letting you. No, you're not getting edge of greatness. That's outrageous. I think, Matt, you do make. I think you make a
Price is right. Touch of greatness. Meet in the middle. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's a convincing case. Mancini's Man City, Aguero, touch of greatness. One last thing we like to do before we sign off, and we imagine we're in the time machine, and if you have an opportunity to go back to one of those games. Well, let's start with you, Jamie, because I think I know which team you're not going back to.
I'm going to be succinct if I can possibly on this occasion, and I'm going to surprise you. Football is fantastic and you live for some of the most amazing moments. And as much as it would be painful, I think to be a part of that Aguero moment would be something special as a football fan. So, Graham, I'm going to go back to the pain of QPR and City, because I think experiencing that jubilation, as much as I might find it quite painful, would be quite a liberating experience. And maybe it's quite cathartic for me as well to get over it.
Matt, what about you? Where would you head?
Well, the problem with this Inter Milan side is they are not a fun side to watch. They are a, like we said, counter-attacking, quickly point A to point B. And look, here comes the Spursiness. The closest I've had to that moment is a semi-final. And that was the greatest, the greatest feeling I've ever had when Lucas Moura, scored that third goal. Final, same as Aguero, final kick of the game. We're dead and buried. No Kane. So just to get that in there. So I have to agree with Jamie. That Aguero moment is to beat your rivals. I can only imagine what it would feel like to have that over Arsenal or Chelsea. And yeah, it has to be the Aguero moment. And I think that's football is subjective, but that is the correct answer.
Obviously, I have to differ. Surely, now the assumption has to be, that you want Inter to beat Barcelona, and assuming that's your starting point, with the man sent off after 10, 15 minutes or whatever it was, parking the bus, battling out for 90 minutes, proper tension there. That's where I'm going. Proper Mourinho. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Matt, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I'll be back anytime.
Jamie, thank you for reliving a difficult season for you.
I feel much wiser and better for it. And yeah, Matt, you will be welcome back. That was great fun. Thank you.
So that's it for this week. Please get in touch with any comments about any of the incredible stories we've heard today. You can find us on Twitter at ByFarTheGreatestFC or on Insta at ByFarTheGreatestTeam, or go to touringthewildrover.com for a full list of our podcasts and rankings so far. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.